My future mother-in-law called me cruel for not paying for my wedding. Then I uncovered my fiancé's disgusting secret. The first line that signals the end of your peaceful life is never a shout, it's a whisper. Mine came on a Tuesday, disguised as a polite family request, and it was the moment I realized the wedding I was planning wasn't just mine. It was a battlefield, and I had just been handed my weapons. But the person I was fighting wasn't just his mother. It was the man I was about to marry, and the silence he used as a shield. My life, until that moment, had been a carefully curated exhibit. My name is Maya, and I'm a curator at one of the smaller, more intimate museums in Ann Arbor. My world is built on the quiet poetry of history, on the way a cracked piece of pottery can tell a story of 1,000 meals, of 1,000 arguments, of 1,000 reconciliations. I find comfort in things that have survived. My fiancé, Devon, works in the same world, just across the town square at the Natural History Museum. He's in education programming, which means he's the one who gets to see the bright, uncomplicated joy on kids' faces when they see a dinosaur skeleton. I get the pensive college students and the quiet academics. We fit. Our life was comfortable, a word that people often mistake for boring. We made a combined $110,000, which in Ann Arbor meant we could afford our cozy, book-filled apartment, our slightly too old cars, and a biannual trip to see my family in Michigan's Upper Peninsula. We weren't rich, but we were solvent. We were happy. And after 4 years of building this quiet, stable life, we were finally planning our wedding. The planning itself had been the easiest part of our relationship. We were in perfect sync. No, $5,000 for flowers is insane, Devon had said, scrolling through a vendor list one night, his glasses perched on his nose. We can get twice as much for half the price at the farmer's market. I was thinking the same thing, I'd murmured, leaning my head on his shoulder. I just want good food, good music, and everyone we love. And we'd stuck to that. We found a venue, a beautifully restored library with soaring ceilings and dark wood, for $8,000. Our photographer, a woman whose work was all about candid, emotional moments, was $3,000. We weren't skipping the DJ and we weren't having a cash bar. It was a nice, solid us wedding. 80 people. Total budget. $35,000. And the most important part, the part I was proudest of, we were paying for every cent ourselves. No family help, no strings attached, or so I thought. The string I didn't see was attached to Devon's younger brother, Samir. Samir, the 27-year-old freelance graphic designer in Seattle. The creative one, as his mother, Brenda, always called him, her voice dripping with a mix of pride and pity. In our 4 years together, I'd met Samir maybe 3 times. He was perpetually on the verge of a big break, which translated to being perpetually broke. He was all frantic creative energy and unfinished projects, a stark contrast to Devon's steady, quiet warmth. The phone call came while I was finalizing the catering deposit. Devon was in the other room, working on a new exhibit layout. I saw Brenda flash on his phone screen, and he picked it up with his usual, "Hey, Mom. What's up?" I was only half listening, toggling between chicken, salmon, or vegan option on the invoice. I heard Devon's side of the conversation, the way his voice flattened, the way he started pacing. "No, Mom, it's in June." "Yeah, here in Ann Arbor. I know, but all of Maya's family is here." "No, we already put down the deposits." I turned in my chair, the catering invoice forgot. Devon was standing by the window, his back to me, one hand rubbing the back of his neck. That was his stress tell. "Mom, I understand, but I know it's important. Let me talk to Maya about it." "Okay, I will." "Love you too." He hung up and stood there for a full 30 seconds, just staring out at the rain-slicked street. The silence in the apartment was deafening, broken only by the tick-tick-tick of the kitchen clock. "Devon," I asked, my voice small. "What's wrong?" He turned, and the look on his face wasn't anger or sadness. It was guilt. It was the look of a man caught between two worlds, and I knew, instantly, that this was not going to be a simple conversation. "That was Mom," he said, as if I hadn't heard. "I gathered that. What did she want? Is Samir okay?" "Yeah, he's fine. It's about the wedding." He walked over and sank onto the couch, his shoulders slumped. "She's worried about Samir. About him getting here, from Seattle." I waited. "Okay, the flight's what, $400? He has 6 months to save up." Devon winced, and that wince told me everything. "That's sort of the problem, Mom. She asked if we could help pay for his travel." I blinked. "Help pay, like pay for his flight and hotel?" And a rental car, Devon added, so quietly I almost didn't hear him. She said it's probably going to be around $800 total, and she knows money is tight for him. A cold, hard knot formed in my stomach. It wasn't about the $800. It was about the expectation, the assumption. Devon, we're not paying for your 27-year-old brother's plane ticket. He's a grown man. I know, Maya, I know, he said, holding up his hands. But she said. She also asked if we'd considered moving the wedding. The air left my lungs. Moving it where? Closer to Seattle, he whispered, looking at the floor. I stood up. The catering invoice slipped from my lap and scattered across the hardwood. You're joking, right? We're moving our entire wedding, for which we have paid thousands of dollars in non-refundable deposits across the country. For one person. Did you tell her how insane that is? Of course I did, he said, his voice finally rising. I told her that's not possible. I told her your entire family is here, most of my family is here. But you know how she gets. She said we're prioritizing a fancy party over family. That's her exact phrase. A fancy party, I sputtered, gesturing around our modest apartment. Does she see how we live? We're not having a fancy party, Devon. We're having a wedding. The one we are paying for. The one we've been saving for 2 years by not going on vacation and by driving 10-year-old cars. I know, he said again, his voice shrinking back to that place of guilt. I know, Maya, I'm on your side, I am. But he wasn't looking at me. He was looking at his hands, and I knew this was just the beginning. Brenda had fired the first shot, and my fiancé, the man I loved for his steadiness, was already wavering. The first crack in our carefully built foundation had just appeared, and it threatened to bring the whole house down. To understand the crack, you have to understand the foundation. Devon and I were not a whirlwind romance. We were a slow burn, a quiet collaboration. We met at a regional museum conference in Grand Rapids. I was there to present a paper on 19th century textile preservation, and he was on a panel about engaging young audiences. I was drawn to his quiet intelligence, the way he listened more than he spoke, and the way his eyes crinkled when he smiled. He told me later he was drawn to my passion, the way I lit up when I talked about the stories objects tell. Our first date was a walk through a different museum, naturally. We spent 4 hours pointing out our favorite pieces, dissecting the curation choices, and by the end of it, I felt like I had known him my entire life. He was stable. He was kind. He was the anchor to my sometimes too analytical for my own good brain. My family loved him. My sister, Lee, who was always a bit more romantic and free-spirited than me, found him a little serious at first, but she came around. He looks at you like you're the most interesting thing in the room, Maya, she'd conceded after a family dinner. Even when you're explaining the history of forks, I'll give him that. My maid of honor, Chloe, was my rock. We'd been friends since grad school, and she was the only person who matched my level of pragmatism. She was a corporate lawyer who had seen me through my worst breakups with a bottle of good whiskey and a ruthless cost-benefit analysis of why I was better off. When I told her about Devon, and then 2 years later that I thought he was the one, she just nodded. He's a good man, Maya, he's solid, he doesn't panic, you need that. And she was right. Until now, Devon's family was different. Not bad, just different. His father was quiet, a retired engineer who seemed perfectly content to be wallpaper. The dominant force, the gravitational pull in the family, was Brenda. Brenda wasn't a monster. She was warm, she was a great cook, and she loved her sons fiercely. But her love was suffocating. It was a love that came with conditions, with expectations, with a running tally of perceived slights and sacrifices. And at the center of her universe, more so than her steady, reliable older son, was her problem child, Samir. Samir was the eternal what if. What if his art took off? What if he finally landed that huge client? He was the moon, and Brenda and Devon were the tides, pulled constantly in his chaotic orbit. Devon's role as the older brother had been cemented since childhood. He was Samir's protector, his fixer, his financial safety net. I remember, about a year into our relationship, Devon getting a panicked call. Samir had miscalculated his rent and was about to be evicted. Without a word to me, Devon transferred him $2,000. When I found out later, I wasn't angry about the money. I was angry about the secrecy. It's just what I do, Maya, he'd explained, looking ashamed. Mom would kill me if she knew he was struggling, and he's too proud to ask her, so he asks me. It's just easier this way. But it's not easier, Devon, I'd argued. It's enabling him. He's never going to learn to stand on his own if you're always there to catch him. He's a creative, Maya. He doesn't think about things like budgets and deadlines the way we do. That's a condescending excuse, and you know it, I'd said, the curator in me rising up. Being creative doesn't absolve you of responsibility. He's 25. We'd had our first real fight that night. He'd accused me of being cold and unfeeling. I'd accused him of being a doormat. We'd eventually made up, and he'd promised to set boundaries. But the Samir Fund, as I'd privately called it, never really closed. $100 here, $200 there for an unexpected car repair. And now, here we were. The $800 was just the latest withdrawal from a bank account I thought was closed. After our argument about Brenda's phone call, the apartment was thick with tension. Devon retreated to his guilt turtle shell, as I called it, giving one-word answers and avoiding my eyes. I retreated to my anger, which was really just fear. Fear that the man I was marrying was not the partner I thought he was. I called Chloe. Am I crazy? I demanded, pacing my kitchen. He wants us to pay for his brother's flight, or worse, he's considering being guilty about not paying for it. Chloe let out a long, slow whistle. Oh, Maya, no. You are not crazy. This is Brenda's opening negotiation. What do you mean, opening negotiation? She doesn't actually think you're going to move the wedding to Seattle. That's the outrageous demand. She throws that out so that when she compromises with just pay for his flight, you're supposed to feel relieved and agree to it. It's classic manipulation. I sank onto a kitchen stool. My God, you're right. That's exactly what it is. Of course I am, Chloe said, her voice all business. So what did Devon say? He said I'm on your side, but he's not really. He's moping. He's making me feel like I'm the bad guy for not wanting to subsidize his adult toddler brother. Listen to me, Chloe said, her tone softening. This isn't about the $800. This is about what happens for the next 50 years. This is about what happens when Samir needs a down payment for a condo. This is about what happens when you have kids and Brenda thinks real family means you pay for Samir's kids' braces. This is the hill. You have to die on it, Maya. Or at least your $35,000 wedding budget does. She was right. I knew she was. But knowing you're right and feeling good about it are two very different things. When Devon finally came to bed that night, I was pretending to be asleep. He slid in beside me, the mattress dipping with his weight. He lay there for a long time, his breathing heavy, before letting out a long, shaky sigh. Maya, he whispered. I didn't answer. I know you're awake, he said. Look, I'm sorry about tonight. I'm not going to let her ruin this. We're not moving the wedding. We're not paying for his flight. I'll handle it. I'll call her tomorrow and I'll be firm. I turned over, the faint light from the street lamp illuminating his face. He looked exhausted, the lines around his eyes deeper than usual. Will you, though? I asked. Will you really be firm, Devon, or will you just tell her Maya said no? His face hardened. That's not fair. Isn't it? Because that's what's happened every other time. I'm the one who's cold. I'm the one who's too practical. I'm the bad guy curator who doesn't understand the creative soul. I'm tired of being the bad guy, Devon. For this to work, you have to be the one to set the boundary, not me. He stared at the ceiling. I will, I promise, I'll handle it. He kissed my forehead, and I wanted to believe him. I wanted to believe that the foundation was still strong, that this was just a minor tremor. But as I lay there, listening to him fall into a restless sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real earthquake was yet to come. The next few days were a study in toxic, passive-aggressive silence. Devon did call his mother. I know because I was in the room, pretending to read a museum quarterly, my entire nervous system tuned to his conversation. It was underwhelming. Hey mom, look about the other day. Yeah, I talked to Maya and we just can't. No, we can't. The deposits, mom. I know he'll be upset. No, it's not that we don't want to, it's a lot, mom. The budget is already. Look, can we talk about this later? I have to go. He hung up looking physically ill. So, I asked, putting the quarterly down. So I told her. We're not moving it and we can't afford to pay. You said we can't afford to pay, Devon. That's not the truth. The truth is we won't. There's a difference. One is a circumstance, the other is a choice. You're making it sound like we're just short on cash. What did you want me to say? He snapped, his frustration finally boiling over. That we're choosing to let my brother miss our wedding because we'd rather have a string quartet. That's what she'll hear. What I want, I said, my voice dangerously calm, is for you to tell her that Samir is a 27-year-old man, and it is his own responsibility to save $800 in 6 months to attend his only brother's wedding. That's the truth. Why are you so afraid to say it? Because it's harsh, Maya. It's not harsh, it's reality. It's your reality, it's not ours. In our family, we help each other, we don't just cut people off because it's inconvenient. The words in our family hung in the air, a poison dart, our family. As in his family, not our new family, not me. So I'm not family yet, I asked, my voice dropping. Is that it? I'm just the inconvenience who doesn't get the real family memo. That's not what I meant, he said, collapsing onto the couch, the fight draining out of him. You're twisting my words, I feel guilty. He's my brother. I want him there. Is that so wrong? No, I said, sitting across from him. It's not wrong to want him there. It's wrong to feel guilty that he's created a life for himself where he can't afford to come. It's wrong for your mother to use that guilt to manipulate us. And it's wrong for you to let her. He said nothing. He just stared at the floor. The first crack wasn't just a hairline anymore. It was a fissure, and I could see the man I loved on the other side, and he was getting farther away. The next blow came not from Brenda, but from my own sister, Lee. I had lunch with her and my maid of honor, Chloe, that weekend, hoping for some solidarity. I laid out the whole story, the phone call, Devon's guilt, my frustration. Chloe, as expected, was a bulldog. Absolutely not, she said, stabbing a piece of lettuce. This is textbook financial and emotional blackmail. Do not give them a single inch, Maya, not one. I looked at Lee, who had been uncharacteristically quiet, swirling the ice in her water. Lee, you haven't said anything, you agree, right? This is insane, Lee sighed, pushing her hair behind her ear. I mean, yeah, moving the wedding is insane, obviously, but, Maya, is the $800 really the hill you want to die on? I stared at her. What? I'm just saying. You just told us your budget is $35,000. What's $800? In the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. It's like, what, the cost of the party favors you were looking at. You're spending $3,000 on a photographer, and Samir is. I mean, he's Devon's brother, it's his only brother. He's going to be really, really hurt if he's not there. I felt the blood drain from my face. I looked to Chloe for help, but she just looked as stunned as I was. Lee, you can't be serious, I said. I'm playing devil's advocate, she said, getting defensive. You said yourself money is tight for him. He's a graphic designer. It's not like he's a lawyer like Chloe or a museum person. He's an artist, and it seems a little cold, Maya, that's all. You're very black and white about it. But this is family. Family is messy. Sometimes you just help. It's not help, Lee, it's enabling, I argued, my voice rising. He has 6 months, that's $133 a month. That's like not ordering takeout 3 times a week. If he can't do that for his own brother, that's his problem, not mine. But it is your problem now, Lee countered, her voice soft but firm. It's your problem because it's making Devon miserable. And you're marrying Devon. So his miserable guilty brother problem is now your miserable guilty brother problem. Isn't it worth $800 just to make it go away? To make Devon happy. So I'm supposed to pay for his family's happiness. I was shaking, I was so angry. Just bribe them so they'll leave me alone, that's your advice. She's saying you're being cold, Chloe interjected, her eyes narrowing at Lee. That's what you're saying, isn't it, Lee? That Maya's being a cold-hearted bitch. I didn't say that, Lee cried, her face flushing. Maya, you're my sister and I love you, but sometimes you get so stuck on the principle of a thing that you forget about the people. This is hurting Devon. Can't you see that? I stood up, grabbing my purse. I see that my own sister thinks I'm being cruel, I see that. Thanks for the support. Maya, wait, but I was already out the door. I walked the 10 blocks back to my apartment, the cold Ann Arbor air biting at my cheeks, but I barely felt it. I was burning up with a righteous, terrifying anger. It wasn't just Brenda. It wasn't just Devon's guilt. Now it was my own sister. I was an island. The only person who seemed to get it was Chloe, and she wasn't the one I was building a life with. When I got home, the apartment was empty. Devon had left a note. Went for a drive, need to clear my head. But I knew where he'd gone. He'd gone to the one place he always went when he was stressed and I was being too practical. He'd gone to the bar. And that's when the text started. A new wave of attacks. Not from Devon, not from Lee, from Brenda. She must have sensed that Devon was weakening, that her firm talk had been a bluff. She was moving in for the kill. The first text came to me directly. My phone buzzed on the counter, a number I didn't have saved but knew instantly. Brenda, Maya, Devon told me your decision. I just want to say how deeply disappointed I am. I thought you valued family, but I see you only value a fancy party. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding a furious rhythm against my ribs. I'm being cruel, I'm cold, I'm selfish. I value a party over family. The narrative was being written and I was the villain. I threw the phone on the couch, refusing to answer. But a minute later, it buzzed again. Brenda, Samir is heartbroken. He's not even sure he wants to talk to Devon right now. You are tearing this family apart over a few $100s. I hope you're happy with your perfect wedding. Tearing the family apart, me, it was my fault. Not Samir's inability to hold a job, not Brenda's manipulation, not Devon's weakness. Mine. I was standing in my perfect, quiet, curated apartment and I felt the walls begin to close in. The first crack wasn't a crack anymore. It was a canyon, and I was all alone on one side. Devon didn't come home until after midnight. I was on the couch, the apartment dark except for the blue-white light of the television, the sound on mute. I had cycled through a whole spectrum of emotions, from the white-hot rage at Brenda's texts, to the cold disappointment from Lee's betrayal, to a deep, hollow fear. The fear that the man I'd promised to marry was, at his core, a stranger. I heard his keys in the lock, a clumsy fumbling that told me he'd had more than one drink. He stumbled in, flipping on the overhead light. I winced, and he finally saw me. Maya, he slurred, Jesus, you scared me. What are you doing sitting in the dark? Waiting for you, I said, my voice flat. Where have you been, Devon? I told you, I went for a drive, I stopped at Connor's, had a beer, or two. He wouldn't meet my eyes. He was shrugging off his jacket, avoiding me, a guilty child. Your mother texted me, I said. That stopped him. His hand, midway to hanging his jacket, froze. He slowly turned to face me. What? What did she say? She said I'm tearing your family apart. She said Samir is heartbroken. She said I'm prioritizing a fancy party over family, the usual. I held up my phone, the screen glowing. Did you know she was going to do this? Is this the new strategy? You pretend to be on my side and she carpet bombs me with guilt. No, God no, Maya, I didn't. He ran his hands through his hair, his face a mask of misery. I called her after I left. I tried to smooth things over. I must have said something that made her think. What did you say, Devon? I stood up, the Afghan pooling at my feet. What exactly did you say to your mother? I said we were both really torn up about it. I said you were really stressed with the budget and that maybe we could look at it again. The air went thin. You said what? I was just trying to buy some time, he exploded. I was trying to get her off my back, off our backs. I thought if I just placated her, she'd calm down. I didn't know she'd text you. Placated her. I was walking toward him now, my voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You didn't placate her, Devon. You gave her an opening. You told her I was the one stressed about the budget. You made it about money. You made me the bad guy, just like I begged you not to. He was cornered, backed up against the coat rack. He was drunk and cornered and guilty, and he did what people do in that situation. He lashed out. Well, maybe you are, he shouted, his voice cracking. Maybe you are being cold. My brother, my only brother, might miss my wedding and all you can talk about is deposits. And principals, Lee called me, you know. She called me after your lunch. She said she's worried about you. She said you're not seeing the human side of this. That's your own sister, Maya. The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Lee, she hadn't just disagreed with me. She had gone behind my back to my fiancé. She had teamed up with them. The rope I was holding onto, the one I thought was anchored to my own family, had just been cut. What? I whispered. Yeah, Devon said, his chest heaving. He seemed to be sobering up fast, realizing what he'd just admitted. She's just worried. We all are. It's $800, Maya. Just tell me what we have to cut. We'll cut it. I'll skip the DJ. We'll use a playlist. I don't care. I'll get a cheaper photographer. I stared at him. It was like I was seeing him for the first time. The man I loved, the man I thought was my partner, was standing in our living room bartering away pieces of our wedding, the wedding we had planned, to appease his mother and his broke brother. He wasn't just offering to compromise, he was offering to capitulate. He was offering my sacrifices, not his. A cheaper photographer, I said, my voice hollow. The photographer I researched for 6 months. The one whose work I love, the one who. That's what you're offering up, that, and the DJ. You know how much you wanted a DJ. You said a playlist was tacky. That was your word, Devon, tacky. I don't care, he yelled. I don't care about any of it anymore. It's just a party. My mom's right, it's just a goddamn party and it's ruining my family. It's not just a party, I shrieked, the tears finally coming, hot and angry. It's our wedding, it's the one day. The one thing, that's supposed to be about us. And you're letting them take it, you're helping them take it, you're weak. The word hit him harder than a slap. His face went white. The anger vanished, replaced by a deep, wounded look that I would remember for the rest of my life. Maya, he whispered. No, I said, backing away, wiping my face. I can't do this. I can't marry a man who won't stand up for me. I can't be the bad guy for the rest of my life. I need to go. Go where? It's 1 a.m. To Chloe's, I said, grabbing my keys from the bowl by the door. I can't be here right now, I can't even look at you. Maya, don't do this, he pleaded, reaching for me. Don't walk away, we can fix this, it's just money, we'll just pay it, okay? I'll call Mom right now and tell her we'll pay it. Please just stay, and that was it. That was the moment, the breaking point. He wasn't offering to fight for me, he was offering to buy my compliance. He was offering to pay the $800, not because it was right, but to make me stay, to shut me up, to end the fight. He was willing to set the precedent that, for the rest of our lives, Brenda's happiness could be bought, and the money would come from our joint account. No, I said, my voice as cold and hard as I felt. You still don't get it. It was never about the $800. I opened the door, walked out into the hallway, and didn't look back. I showed up at Chloe's apartment looking like a ghost. She opened the door in her pajamas, took one look at my tear-streaked face and my overnight bag, and just pulled me inside. He's a coward, I sobbed, collapsing onto her expensive leather sofa. He let them win, he teamed up with my sister. I told her everything, the texts from Brenda, the fight, the cheaper photographer, the way Lee had gone behind my back. Chloe listened, her face growing harder with every word. She didn't say, I told you so. She just made me a cup of tea, spiked it with a shot of whiskey without asking, and sat with me. Okay, she said finally, after I had cried myself out. Here's what you're not going to do. You're not going to call him. You're not going to answer his texts. You're going to stay here, and you are going to let him panic. He needs to feel the full weight of what he just broke. But the wedding, Chloe, all the deposits. Forget the deposits, she said fiercely. You can lose $15,000 in deposits, or you can lose the next 50 years of your life being a doormat for his dysfunctional family. Your choice. She was, as always, brutally right. I stayed at Chloe's for 3 days. It was the longest 3 days of my life. My phone exploded. 27 missed calls from Devon. 53 texts from Devon, ranging from Maya, please come home, to I'm so sorry, I was drunk, to you're destroying us. 8 calls from my sister Lee, which I ignored. And most chillingly, one single, sanctimonious text from Brenda. Brenda, I hope you're proud of yourself. Devon is a wreck. This is not the kind of woman I thought he was marrying. I wanted to throw the phone against the wall. On the 3rd day, Chloe sat me down. Okay, wrecking ball, she said, handing me a coffee. You've had your time to mourn. Now we're going to war, or at least we're going to do some opposition research. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Samir, she said, opening her laptop. I'm a lawyer, Maya, I don't like losing. And you're losing because you're fighting an emotional battle. I fight with facts. You keep saying Samir is broke. Why is he broke? Is he bad at his job? Is he a starving artist? Let's find out. Chloe, that's invasive. So is telling your future daughter-in-law that she's tearing a family apart. Log in to your Instagram. Reluctantly, I did. Chloe took the laptop. Okay, so we're friends with Devon. Who is friends with Samir? Let's look at Samir's profile. Is it private? I don't know, I don't really follow him. Chloe clicked a few times. Nope, public. Samir Designs, of course. She scrolled through his feed. It was what you'd expect. Moody photos of Seattle rain, close-ups of latte art, a few logos he'd apparently designed. Okay, he's mediocre, Chloe muttered. But he's working. Here's a logo for a coffee shop. Here's a beer label. He's not working. So he's just bad with money, Chloe. That's all, it's not a conspiracy. Humor me, she said. She clicked on his tagged photos. And that's when we saw it. The first photo was from 3 weeks ago. Samir, grinning, holding up a snowboard. The caption from his friend, Reed. So stoked to have it, Samir Designs join the crew. Welcome to the pass holder life. Chloe's fingers flew across the keyboard. A season pass at Crystal Mountain. Let's see. That's $1,400. What? I said, leaning in. SHH. Keep scrolling. The next one was from 2 months ago, a group shot. Samir front and center at a very fancy-looking restaurant. The location tag, Canley's. Canley's, I whispered. That's one of the most expensive restaurants in Seattle. Tasting menu is like $200 a person. Chloe just nodded grimly. And here, and here, and here. She was scrolling through a digital receipt of his life. A new $300 jacket. Tickets to a concert I knew cost a fortune. A weekend trip to Portland. He wasn't just bad with money. He was hemorrhaging it. He was living a life far, far richer than the broke graphic designer story everyone was selling. He wasn't broke, he was a liar, and then Chloe stopped. Oh my God, she whispered. What? I demanded, my heart hammering. She turned the laptop to me. It was a photo from a month ago, a screenshot from a travel website. A confirmation page. What is that? That, Chloe said, her voice ice, is a round-trip first-class ticket from Seattle to Tokyo. Departure date last week. Return date 2 days ago, he just got back. I couldn't breathe. A first-class ticket to Tokyo. That was $5,000, $8,000, it was thousands of dollars. But, Brenda said, Devon said, money is tight. Money isn't tight, Maya, Chloe said, closing the laptop with a definitive snap. He's just spent his wedding travel money on a vacation to Japan. And he's relying on his big brother and his mommy to bail him out and buy his ticket to Michigan. The entire conflict. The entire fight that had ripped my relationship apart, that had my fiancé calling me cruel, that had my sister calling me cold, was a lie. It was a complete and utter fabrication. We sat there in silence for a full minute. The anger I'd felt before was a tiny, pale imitation of the glacial rage that was now filling my veins. It was cold, and it was clarifying. He's not broke, I said, my voice shaking with a terrifying, newfound calm. He's just an asshole. Yes, Chloe said, and his mother and brother are his willing accomplices. They know, I said, the realization dawning. Devon must know, he sends him money, he knows what he spends. He's been lying to me, they've all been lying to me. Devon wasn't a well-meaning, guilty but weak man. He was a co-conspirator. He knew his brother was playing a part, and he was willing to make me the villain in their family drama, to sacrifice my happiness and our budget just to maintain this lie. This changed everything. It wasn't about the $800. It wasn't even about the deposits. It was about the fact that the entire foundation of my 4-year relationship was built on sand. Chloe, I said, standing up. I'm going home, and I need you to email me those screenshots. What are you going to do? She asked, a small, dangerous smile playing on her lips. I'm a curator, I said, grabbing my coat. I'm going to put on an exhibit. When I walked into our apartment, Devon was sitting on the couch, looking like he hadn't slept or showered in 3 days. The floor was littered with takeout containers. He jumped up when he saw me, his face a mix of hope and terror. Maya, oh my God, Maya, you're home. He rushed to me, tried to grab me, to hug me. I put my hand up and he froze. Don't, I said. My voice was not the voice of the woman who had fled 3 days ago. This voice was new. Sit down, Devon, frightened, he did. He sat on the edge of the couch, wringing his hands. Maya, I am so sorry. I'll do anything. I'll call Samir, I'll tell him he's on his own. I'll tell my mom to back off. I've been a coward. You were right. I was weak. Please, we can fix this. I sat in the chair across from him. My chair. The practical, slightly worn armchair. I felt calm. I felt, for the first time in weeks, completely in control. Do you know where your brother was 2 weeks ago, Devon? I asked, my voice conversational. He blinked, confused by the non sequitur. What, Seattle, I don't know, Maya, what does that? He was in Tokyo, I said. First class, he just got back. Did he send you a postcard? Devon's face went from pale to chalk white. It was not the look of a surprised man. It was the look of a man who had just been caught. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered. Don't you? I asked. I took my phone out and airdropped the first screenshot to the smart TV. The picture of Samir at Canley's, raising a glass, filled the screen. That's Canley's, I said, as if narrating an exhibit. Tasting menu is $200. That was 2 months ago. I swiped, the snowboarding photo. And that's his new season pass at Crystal Mountain. $1,400. That was 3 weeks ago. I swiped again. The Tokyo ticket, the confirmation. And that's the first-class ticket. He got back 2 days ago. He must have been exhausted. Devon was staring at the screen, his mouth open. He wasn't speaking. He couldn't, you knew, I whispered. It wasn't a question. You knew he wasn't broke. You knew he was spending thousands of dollars on himself, on luxuries, while your mother was calling me, cruel and selfish for not wanting to pay for his $800 flight. You knew, Maya, it's not that simple, he tried, his voice strangled. It's exactly that simple. I was on my feet now. How much, Devon, how much did you give him? Did you pay for the ticket to Tokyo too? Was that his big break? No, I help him out sometimes. You've been lying to me for our entire relationship. You've been subsidizing his lifestyle, and you've been letting me believe he's a struggling artist. You've been making me the enemy, the cold-hearted bitch who doesn't understand family, all to protect. This spoiled manipulative leech. He's my brother, Devon shouted, finally finding his voice. And I'm supposed to be your wife. I screamed back, the sound tearing from my throat. Your partner, the one you don't lie to, the one you protect. Who was protecting me when your mother was texting me? Who was protecting me when my own sister called me cold? You just sat there and let it happen. You encouraged it. You told me I was the one with the problem. I was pacing, vibrating with the force of the betrayal. You suggested we cut the DJ. You suggested we get a cheaper photographer. Our wedding. You were willing to cheapen the one day of our lives to what? To give your brother an extra $800 in fun money. To keep the family lie going. I just wanted everyone to be happy, he whispered, his head in his hands. You can't make everyone happy, Devon, I said. That's what being an adult is. It's choosing, and you chose them. You chose your mother's manipulation and your brother's lies over me. I walked to our desk, the desk where we'd sat side by side, planning this whole wedding. I opened the drawer and pulled out the binder, the one with all our contracts, all our deposits. What are you doing? He asked, looking up, his eyes wide with panic. I'm a curator, Devon, I said, holding the binder. I preserve things. I take broken, beautiful things and I try to tell their story. But some things aren't broken. They're rotten. They're a lie from the beginning and you can't curate a lie. I walked to the kitchen, opened the trash can and dropped the binder in. Maya, no, he yelled, scrambling up. What? That's the wedding. There is no wedding, Devon, I said. The silence that followed was absolute. He stared at me, his face collapsing. This wasn't a fight. This wasn't a breaking point. This was an ending. You don't mean that, he said. I have never meant anything more in my life, I said. It was never about the $800. It was about the lies. It was about the fact that you would stand there drunk and tell me that I was the one being harsh when you knew the truth. You're not a good man, Devon. You're not a stable partner. You're just a coward. I went to the bedroom, pulled out my suitcase and started packing. This time I wasn't running to Chloe's. I was just leaving. Where will you go? He asked, standing helplessly in the doorway. I'm going to call our venue, I said, zipping the bag. And the photographer and the caterer. And I'm going to tell them the wedding is off. I'm going to see how much of our $35,000 I can get back. My half anyway. Our money. Maya, wait, let's just talk. No, I said, pushing past him. I stopped at the door. You and your family. You were so worried about prioritizing family over a fancy party. Well, congratulations, Devon. You're getting your wish, you have your family, and I'm keeping my half of the party budget. I walked out the door. This time, I didn't just walk. I left. Losing $15,000 in non-refundable deposits feels exactly as bad as you think it would. It's a sickness in your stomach. It's the phantom limb of a future you had already paid for. But the truth is, it was the cheapest $15,000 I ever spent. It was the price of my freedom. It was the cost of learning, in no uncertain terms, who I was and who I would not allow myself to be. I moved in with Chloe for a month. We drank a lot of wine and made a lot of spreadsheets. Operation Extract Maya, she called it. She was ruthless, and it's what I needed. She helped me get my name off the lease. She was the one who went with me to the apartment to get the last of my things, standing like a sentinel in the doorway, while Devon tried to plead with me one last time. She's not interested in your apologies, Devon, Chloe had said, her voice flat. She's interested in the deposit slip for her half of the savings account. My sister, Lee, was a harder-fought battle. She called me sobbing after she got my text that the wedding was off. I can't believe it, she cried. Maya, what happened? What happened, I said, my voice tired, is that you picked a side. You called my fiancé, the man I was supposed to trust, and you told him I was the one who was cold. You validated his guilt. You gave him a weapon to use against me. I was just. I know, I cut her off. You were trying to see the human side. You were trying to be the nice one. But sometimes, Lee, the nice thing is the wrong thing. You chose to be nice instead of being my sister. It took a long time to fix that. Months. It took her sitting on my new, very small, very empty apartment floor, listening to me, really listening, as I explained the screenshots, the lies, the years of enabling. It took her finally understanding that my hardness wasn't a flaw. It was a shield against a family that used softness as a weapon. As for Devon and his family, I went no contact. I blocked Brenda, I blocked Samir, and I blocked Devon. I heard through the museum grapevine, Ann Arbor is a small town, after all, that 6 months later Devon was transferred. He moved, not to Seattle but to Chicago. I heard his mother, Brenda, told everyone I'd had a breakdown and that I couldn't handle the pressure of marriage. A runaway bride, but with a mean streak. I let her. I let her have her story, because I had the truth. I heard, about a year after that, from a mutual friend that Samir had finally gone too far. He'd gotten into some kind of gambling debt, and this time, Devon hadn't been there to bail him out. He'd had to move back home. Back in with Brenda, the creative genius back in his childhood bedroom, a curator of his own failures. I stayed in Ann Arbor. I poured myself into my work. I got a promotion. I curated an exhibit on falsified histories, objects and documents that were proven to be fakes, but whose stories told a deeper truth. It was a huge success. It's been 2 years. I'm still single. I'm still paying off the small loan I had to take out to cover the last of the deposit losses. But I'm happy. My life is quiet, it's stable. It's mine. Sometimes I'll be walking home, and I'll pass the restored library where we were supposed to get married. I'll see a new couple, dressed in white, posing for pictures on the steps. I don't feel jealous. I don't feel regret. I just feel quiet. I learned that a relationship isn't a museum. You can't just curate the good parts and hide the rot in storage. You can't build a life with someone who is more committed to the lie of their past than the truth of your future. It was never about the $800. It was about what the $800 represented. It was the price of admission into their family, and the cost was my voice, my boundaries, and my self-worth. It turns out, it was a price I was, for the first time in my life, unwilling to pay. You can't buy your way into a family. And you shouldn't have to. Real love isn't a transaction, and family isn't a word you use to justify bad behavior. It's a word you earn, through trust, through respect, and through the hard, brave work of telling the truth, even when a lie would be so much easier.